Welcome back to the channel. I've got a Blu-ray update. It has been a while. I took a small break after the October Horror Challenge, but I do have some videos coming. I've got this one. I've got another update to do, a bunch of titles, um, and then I've got a Franco Friday covering Severin's new release for The Sex is Crazy. So I'm going to be doing some videos. Uh, so as far as this update, let's go through what I've watched. First up is Arrow's fantastic release for Raging Fury, also known as Hell High, 1989 slasher film and a really underrated slasher film. I give it an 8 out of 10. Doug Grossman directed this thing, and it's a shame he didn't do anything else because this is fantastic. It's got great kills, it's got a great story, it's well paced, and it's got interesting characters. You can't ask anything more from it. And a fantastically interesting um, female killer. You know, you don't get a whole lot of female killers in slashers. Um, it's kind of like on two hands you can count memorable female slasher killers, but this one's fantastic. I love it. And Joe Bob Brigg agrees with me because he's got an introduction on here and an audio commentary. We've got an interview with the writer and director Doug Grossman. Highly recommend this release. 8 out of 10. Hell High. I think it's one of the best slasher films of all. I think it's definitely top 20 slasher film. Next up is Shout Factory's The Burbs, which is a great comedy from Joe Dante directed it, and Tom Hanks plays this guy that's in the suburbs, and he and Bruce Dern are neighbors, and they've uh, decided that they've got this neighbor that's killing people off, or so they think, and they do all this crazy comedic shit trying to catch him in the act and solve this mystery in the neighborhood. And of course, subsequently, it turns out that the real idiots and crazy people are Tom Hanks and Bruce Dern. Although they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong. Uh, Fun film. I give it a 7 out of 10. It's not, I mean, it's not anything earth shattering, but I like it a lot. There's an audio commentary track on here. And then I think there is, I'm trying to remember, I went through all this. There's a making of, yeah, that includes Corey Feldman, who has a minor role in this as well. Good stuff. Next up is a Scream Factory release for Hammer's The Brides of Dracula, which unfortunately does not have Chris Lee, but you know what? David Peel's excellent in this. To hell with it. I think he's fantastic in this. I give this an 8 out of 10. Of course, I grew up with Hammer. Hammer's my jam. Peter Cushing apparently objected to the ending, and so they were rushing around. The ending is kind of weak, in my opinion, on this. But the ending that they were going to do, which they basically moved that ending to Kiss of the Vampire because of Peter Cushing's objections, is also kind of weak. Um, but I tell you what, the female vampires in this are downright scary. Uh, they are creepy as fuck. And this has some great action in it. Really, really good film. There's a making of. There's a audio commentary with Steve Haberman and Constantine Nasser. And then you've got interviews with Jimmy Sangster, the screenwriter. Yvette Moonlar is on here. Good stuff. Good stuff. Great release. I love it. Probably the best release that I know of Brides of Dracula available today. Uh, Region A or B. I'm kind of behind on the Vestron, so I did jump into some Vestron purchases that I've been lacking. And first up is one that I love is Dementia 13. Francis Ford Coppola has directed this proto slasher, which I was kind of lukewarm on, honestly. But having watched the director's cut of this, yeah, I've definitely upped my rating to 7.5. And this audio commentary track with Francis Ford Coppola, man, it's worth the price of admission just for that. Excellent stuff. Highly recommend Dementia 13. Next up is a film from Kino, and that is, I'm sorry, that's not Kino, it's Scream Factory. The Manitou. And I saw The Manitou in the theaters in '78, and it was stupid as shit then, and I was a kid. And it's stupid as shit now, and I'm an old man, so uh, I don't know what to tell you. The Manitou is just silly as fuck. Tony Curtis plays this psychic who gets involved with this girl that's pregnant with uh, an Indian baby, an Indian chieftain, and it's got kind of an Exorcist vibe to it at the end, but it turns into some kind of a. Apparently, they were trying to cash in on the popularity of Star Wars, so there's all this outer space type, cheesy looking outer space shit at the end of this film. It didn't hold up when I was a kid, and it definitely didn't hold up now. I give it a 5 out of 10. It's interesting just for the nostalgia of it. Uh, but if you didn't grow up in this time period and you didn't see it when it came out, you're probably going to think the same thing I did do, which is it's not too good. It's got an audio commentary with Troy Howarth, and an interview with the executive producer David Shelton. I think this is just a mess of a film, honestly. Next up is a made-for-TV film from Kino, Tarantulas: The Deadly Cargo from '77, and ironically enough, I did not see it. I saw a lot of movies in the mid '70s, the eco horror movies, starting with Grizzly, Food of the Gods. I saw at the theater, but I never saw this. This is made for TV. This has got an early acting role for Tom Atkins is in this, and Claude Atkins stars in this one about some tarantulas that are brought over uh, by a group that's smuggling drugs, airlifting drugs across the border. It's not bad. It's okay. Uh, I mean, it's kind of it's not the kind of movie that I'll go back to. I think Kingdom of the Spiders is much more fun than this, but you know, made for TV. What can you do? Decent release. It's cheap enough. Pick it up. Next up from Kino is a classic movie from. Oh, damn it. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, starring the legendary John Barrymore. This 35 millimeter print looks fantastic on here. I guess it's a HD scan. It's an HD scan, but man, it looks good. And this release is, I mean, John Barrymore. It's unbelievable how he was able to manipulate his body and his face with virtually no makeup, and the transformation scenes are just cinema gold. They really are. This release is interesting because it has two of the previous releases which I thought were lost. You've got the 1912 version with James Cruz, and then you've got a 15-minute cut version of the 1920 version, and that stars Sheldon Lewis. So I was really interested to see those two versions as well. And it's got a comedic version with Stan Laurel, Dr. Pickle and Mr. Pride, which was fun. So great release, directed by John Robertson. Definitely recommend this release. Next up is a Scream Factory release for War of the Colossal Beast. Now I grew up with this movie. I grew up with The Amazing Colossal Man and War of the Colossal Beast. This stuff used to be on Schiller Theater, and I'll just love it. It's not a great movie. In fact, this movie, really, if you've never seen The Amazing Colossal Man, but you've seen this, then you've really seen both of them, because this movie, just like Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, A good 20 minutes of this is just a rehash of the first movie, which is fine with me because I love both of them. Uh, the makeup in this looks great. Uh, the Colossal Man has kind of a partial skull exposed in his face. Looks really good. And then there's a colorized scene at the end that looks really, really awesome. Fun stuff, directed by Burt Gordon. I wish to hell Susan Hart, who was married to John uh, James Nicholson and owns the rights to The Amazing Colossal Man, and she also owns I Was a Teenage Werewolf. I wish she would quit being so damn greedy and help get those films released because we need to see those in Blu Ray format. This has a 2K scan and then a special feature on Burt Gordon at AIP. Unfortunately, it does not have an audio commentary track, but still a great release. I like the alternate artwork on this. Alright, next up is another Vestron release, and this is Extreme Prejudice, Nick Nolte, directed by William Hill. Um, Nick Nolte plays this Texas Ranger who's trying to prevent drugs coming across the border, and his nemesis is played by Powers Booth. It's good stuff, fun movie. Lots of action. Nick Nolte's an asshole. Powers Booth is an asshole. So you can't really go wrong. You got so many assholes in one movie, and they do a good job of being an asshole. You got an audio commentary track on this, an interview with Walter Hill, which was really good. Definitely recommend this release. 8 out of 10. And then finally, the coup de grace, 1959's The Mummy from Second Sight. Limited edition release. Man, oh man, this thing looks fantastic. This is the definitive release of Hammer's The Mummy. Highly recommend this bad boy, and it is loaded. Loaded special fee. It's got a pretty comprehensive book, and although there's pretty bare bones as far as the internal artwork. But man, oh man, this thing loaded with stuff. This has got two audio commentary tracks. Of course, Marcus Hearn and Jonathan Rigby are always on these things. An appreciation of the Mummy, unwrapping the Mummy, and then you've got a really interesting extra which covers the Hammer Rep Company. Memories of Bray Studios. The Mummy is a fantastic film. The Mummy, of course, Boris Karloff's 1932 Mummy are the two best Mummy movies of all time. And I think it's a toss-up from my standpoint as to which one is better. They're different. They're just different. One's more gothic and one's more actiony. I think they're equally as good on their own merits. It's not really fair to compare. It'd be kind of comparing like um, but boxers, like comparing Jack Johnson to Muhammad Ali. I mean, completely different eras, different styles. So it's not entirely fair to make those kind of comparisons. I think they're both 8 out of 10 movies, and they're certainly the best Mummy movies ever made. Although I am a huge Lon Chaney Jr. Mummy fan, but I grew up with those movies, so I get a pass on that. I know they're not good, but I have a soft spot for them. But this is a must own. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this update, and appreciate you watching.